and welcome. Let us begin by offering our pranam to Sri Ramakrishna, Mother Sharada, and Swami Vivekananda. Today, I would like to share with you some ideas on the topic Steps Towards Human Excellence, Sri Ramakrishna's Method. In this, let us talk about various aspects of Sri Ramakrishna's life and teachings in order to make our lives better. It is like a self-improvement program. All of us need to reach human excellence. That is the aim of life. And how does Sri Ramakrishna teach us about human excellence? So we shall talk about Sri Ramakrishna's words, his message. We shall also talk about his own experiences, because these are practical examples of human excellence. We shall also talk about how other people evaluated Sri Ramakrishna in order to tell us what exactly is the quality of human excellence in Sri Ramakrishna. And finally, we shall also talk about how Sri Ramakrishna taught individuals about human excellence. In all these areas, we will be able to learn what is it that we need to do in order to reach that great height Sri Ramakrishna prescribed. To begin with his words, we all know the famous saying of Sri Ramakrishna that the goal of human existence is God realization. This sounds very abstract. It is so difficult for us to understand what is it that Sri Ramakrishna wants us to do. But he spells it out very clearly. He says, devotion, dedication, these are all qualities which we have to have in order to reach the level of realization which he's talking about. Sri Ramakrishna mentions that total commitment and love, what in our traditions we call bhakti. This bhakti is what we require in order to realize God. But when he's talking about God realization, he's not talking about only a small denomination who can realize God. Sri Ramakrishna says that every path leads to the same goal. The goal he has already prescribed. Now he speaks about every path, every religion, every sect, every attitude which is genuine, which is closer to spirituality. That, he says, is what we can follow. It is not necessary to choose this or that. He gives a beautiful metaphor for this. He says that water is called by different names in different languages. But does it mean water is different? It isn't. It is the same substance which is being called by different names. And people collect it from different places, but we use it for the same purpose, and that is to have drinking water or to have water for worship. So we find that Sri Ramakrishna's ideas are ideas of Catholicity. Catholicity means a wide range of acceptance. We also call it inclusivist. Inclusivist would mean that everything is included. We are not saying that this is right and that is wrong. For instance, if you start reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, written by M. Mahendranath Gupta, who does not give his name, he says M. Right in the beginning, we find many examples of what is human excellence. Sri Ramakrishna asks him whether his wife is educated or not. Is she knowledgeable? Then he says, no, she's ignorant. Sri Ramakrishna shows his displeasure by saying, she is ignorant and you are knowledgeable. He gives you the difference between knowledge and information. Just by reading books, in many places, Sri Ramakrishna says, reading books is just a part of gaining knowledge. Real knowledge comes when you start intuiting what you have read. That is why Swami Vivekananda, the foremost disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who learnt all these ideas from his guru, says that knowledge very often is undigested information. You read a book, the book is not intuited, the book is not understood, and that information is there in your mind. That is not knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna gives a description by saying, real knowledge is your felt experience. When you take a theory, you apply it to life, then you become knowledgeable. He gives you many examples of his own learning when he was a child from listening to holy people who used to come to his birthplace, Kamarpukur. He said, not from books, but from listening to these people. Now, what did he get from that? He got the essence of the philosophy, which is thousands of years old in our tradition. And this philosophy he tried out in his long life of sadhana, because he said, we learn from his life. He said that we have to concentrate on one thing at a time. For 12 years, he concentrated on his spiritual experiment. And then he said, I have made a mold. A mold is a form, a structure. Now all of you can cast yourself in that mold. So when we listen to Ramakrishna's words, we get ideas about how human excellence is to be reached. He gives you many qualities of reaching human excellence. He says, today the world is materialistic. People have only two qualities: lust, great desire for everything, and gold, great desire for money. He does not say money is wrong. He says, if you want to earn more money, do it in an honest way. Be honest. We have so much corruption today. The practical example of Sri Ramakrishna tells us how to go towards human excellence. It is correct. You have artha and kama in our purusharthas, but they have to be dharma, dharmic, that is righteous, and leading to moksha, that is final realization, final escape from this world which is an illusion. All of us want to have a wonderful life. All of us want to live practically. Sri Ramakrishna was extremely practical, because if he saw somebody wasting something, he would immediately stop them from doing it. If he saw somebody being very excessively spiritual or pious, he would say, don't be like that. You have to be practical also. So in his own life, he shows this. He asks, and this is a very important concept, self-analysis. So Sri Ramakrishna, a great person, a great, we call him as Avatara Varishta, the greatest of the avatars, but a person who was living a life like all of us are living. So he's showing us the pathway. He's showing us how to reach step by step that ideal of human excellence. Then he tells M, what do you think of me? Very often if people tell us something about ourselves, we don't like it. We say, oh, you are nobody to tell me who I am or what I am. But look at the humility of Sri Ramakrishna. He's teaching us this quality of humility. He's also teaching us self-analysis. I think I'm like this. What do you think about me? He asked many people this question at many points of time. M gives him a lot of qualities. He says, you are a person whose knowledge is extreme, it is supreme knowledge. You are also a person whose renunciation is great. You are a very loving person, a person whose love has no bounds at all, because he had love for everybody. That love envelops all people even today. Just because mortally he is not there, but in his spirit he's there. This idea of taking others' opinion, evaluating ourselves from what others think of us, is an excellent quality, because we cannot judge ourselves. We cannot judge our self-worth correctly if we have an ego. Like earlier, he said to M that you are not knowledgeable till you know about the real spiritual truths. Therefore, don't think your wife is ignorant. Ego is what comes in the way. We all think of I and mine and me. That is not correct. Point by point, at every point, Sri Ramakrishna says, if you read the gospel, you will find he teaches us how to pray. He says that God is your own, so you can pray, you can demand, you can ask. And if you ask earnestly, again, another quality of human excellence, this earnestness we don't have. We have a mind which is vitiated. Sri Ramakrishna says steadiness of the mind is very important. And for this, he gives you the example of a brass pot. He says that the brass pot, if you clean it today, it shines like gold. But gold is always shining. The second day, the brass pot becomes black in color. Again, you have to polish it. Again, you have to clean it. And then it becomes bright as gold. So your capability is there. It is only covered with some black color. All you have to do is to do some mind cleaning. You have to do some mind exercises. This will make you reach towards human excellence. Because if we have a weak mind, if we have a negative mind, we cannot progress. Again and again, you find he refers to this. He says, if God is a magnet, your mind is a needle. So the needle is always attracted to the magnet. But a needle which is covered with some dust, with some dirt, it cannot be attracted. Therefore, you have to first clean that dirt. You have to remove that dust, and then your mind automatically goes towards realization. So you can imagine hard work, concentration, commitment, loyalty, sincerity, love, renunciation. So many qualities of excellence are being spoken about by Sri Ramakrishna. So we saw how his words are important. We saw his experiences. At every point, he would experiment, and he would welcome everybody to experiment with him, with his realization. He never used to accept anything as true unless he carried out this experiment. These examples, you will find hundreds if you read his life. We have a beautiful life written in Bengali, Swami Sharadananda. We have the English translation recently published by Swami Chaitanananda. Earlier English versions are also there. When you read it, you find it is like a manual of human excellence. Every point there is a point of benefiting us, of improving ourselves, because the final goal of human existence is human excellence. And that is where God realization becomes easy. So first we have to purify ourselves. First we have to make ourselves better. Now let us come to the point where I would like to talk to you about how Sri Ramakrishna teaches others also. The first and foremost of his disciples was this little girl who was married to him. Sharada Devi was only 5 years old at that time. He felt a sense of responsibility. He felt that he had to train her. So he gave her two kinds of training: spiritual training, obviously, and secular training also. A training of everyday activities, a training of how to interact with people. Today, we study so much about relationship skills. All human problems, all conflicts are because we make terrible mistakes in our relationships. We do not really know how to do it. So, Mother says that he taught me how to behave with people, how to talk with people. Not enough. She says, he taught me also how to trim the wick of a lamp. Can you imagine? The lamp is what they use. They didn't have electric lights like we have. So the lamp had to be, oil had to be filled, the wick had to be trimmed properly. If it is very black or very long, the oil burns quickly. The light is very huge. Then when the wick is burnt off, the lamp is extinguished. Therefore, this is a very practical skill, how to make it exact, not too much, not too little. This is a great lesson of Sri Ramakrishna. Don't do anything in excess. If you are a devotee, if you have devotion, don't do it in excess so that you ignore everything else in life and you lose yourself in only that. He says that is not necessary. You have to balance. This ability to balance is what he teaches Mother through the trimming of the wick. Then she says that, just like the moon is everybody's, there is only one moon, but all the people in the whole world can appreciate that moon. They can see the moon. The moon gives light to all of them. It is not as though the moon is partisan. So also all nature, nature does not withhold its gifts. It gives the gifts to everybody. It does not choose, Sri Ramakrishna says, whether a person is wicked or a person is good. Nature is bountiful to everybody. That is how we have to commit ourselves completely to God, to realize that the body is not permanent. There is something permanent in all of us, which is there. That is why Swami Vivekananda mentions that we are all children of immortality. Many times he says this, and he also says again and again that all what I speak is my master's voice. It is Sri Ramakrishna speaking through Swami Vivekananda. So you can imagine, if all of us have perfection, if all of us have purity, then it is hidden from us. We have to work very hard, and that is how we reach human excellence. Sri Ramakrishna also told the mother that the people in the world are suffering so much. They are like small worms, lost in the dirt. You have to save all of them. The mother took up this responsibility, though she was reluctant at first, but she took it up. And she did a marvelous job from 1886 to 1920. So many years she did this job. So you can imagine how teaching of Sri Ramakrishna for human excellence shows us how the mother balanced her regular life, her family life, with her spiritual benefits, with her spiritual, disciplines. We have to learn all this. Then we have M. Already I have mentioned the composer of the gospel who wrote down all the words of Sri Ramakrishna and published it for our benefit. So M, again and again, M is being taught various things. How do you realize God? Can God be with form or without form? These are all M, the intellectual. He was a headmaster. These questions were asked by M, the intellectual. Sri Ramakrishna said, intellect is one level of the mind. There are many other levels of the mind which you have to cross. He calls the Vijnani who has knowledge which comes from within, a knowledge which only manifests what is inside. Then he talks about the Satchidananda, the always blissful. Today we find great universities in the world are teaching happiness courses. Now look at Indian tradition, where the concept of happiness, bliss, is the mantra Satchidananda. The Sat, Chit, and Ananda are embedded in each of you. You don't have to go to a university for a course. You just have to bring it out. And this bringing out, this positivity, is what he teaches M. And M writes, and even after Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, M used to tell many people about this positivity, about this acceptance of everything. Sometimes people would say, I'm very devoted to my nephew. I'm very devoted to my goat. Sri Ramakrishna said, don't worry. These are not distractions. Your devotion to your nephew or to your goat is your test for God realization. Can you love your nephew as you love God? That is why when Swami Vivekananda as Narendranath heard that we have to worship human beings as Shiva, he made this into the motto of the Ramakrishna mission and Ramakrishna Math. That if you want to save yourself, if you want to benefit yourself, if you want to reach excellence, then service to others is the way. Jagat hitaya cha. That is what is important. So selflessness, selfless service, all these things, throughout M talks about it in the gospel. Then we have Keshav Chandra Sen, a great Brahmo leader, a world-famous leader who possibly brought Sri Ramakrishna into limelight by his writings. We are grateful to him. So Ramakrishna was very humorous also. He was not always serious. He said, you're like a tadpole. Everybody was shocked. Keshav Chandra Sen was a great person. How can you call such a great person a tadpole? Is it insulting? Sri Ramakrishna laughed and said, no, it is not insulting. That means he can live in the material plane, he can live in the spiritual plane. Like the tadpole can be in water and on the land also. So you can imagine how very humorously he teaches. Then Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, he says, today I have come to the ocean and you are an ocean of compassion. These are qualities which he is teaching us. Compassion is important. The ability to balance both the material and the spiritual is important. These are lessons we are learning from each of them. Girish Ghosh, he teaches surrender by the story of Girish Ghosh. Girish Ghosh says, I'm a great sinner, but I believe that Sri Ramakrishna is not anybody other than the incarnation of God. When others were calling him a mad priest, many people used to call him, oh, he's the mad priest of Dakshineshwar. Girish Ghosh was declaring, no, he is not. Many times we find Girish Ghosh also misbehaved in front of Sri Ramakrishna. Did Sri Ramakrishna get angry? No, he's telling us, he's showing us that anger is a waste of time. He said, don't worry, counsel will prevail, which will make you act better. And Girish was so transformed that in the last moment of his life, he had Sri Ramakrishna welcoming him into the spiritual realm. You can imagine. Then we have many such stories, of course, which I cannot, go into details. Swami Vivekananda as Narendranath Datta, a follower of the Brahmo tradition, did not believe in Mother Kali. Did Sri Ramakrishna force him? Did he say, because I love Mother Kali, you think I'm your guru, so believe in Mother Kali? He never did that. He never compelled. So compulsion does not make you a spiritual person. Compulsion does not change your ideas and attitudes. These days, with social media, there is so much propaganda, and people are compelled to believe something. But if you come to Sri Ramakrishna, he says, believe if you are convinced, believe if your mind agrees, if your heart gives you permission. Do not believe because I'm telling you to believe. This is a skill called critical thinking. Very, very important for all of us to analyze, because Sri Ramakrishna used to tell Swami Vivekananda, please test me as many times as you want to test me, because nobody takes anything without testing. He used to give a beautiful example of people going to buy cattle. He says, if a cattle's tail is twisted and it jumps around, that cattle we can buy. Other cattle we should not buy, because they are very passive. They don't move if you touch their tail also. In this way, in very practical examples, real life examples, he used to teach. When Swami Vivekananda, as a young monk, said, I want Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he said, don't be selfish. You are like a banyan tree. You have to help others. Each one of us, in whatever little capacity we can help others, we should be doing it. That is the path towards human excellence. That is the path towards spirituality, which Sri Ramakrishna has called God realization. Otherwise, we don't believe that we have a spiritual being. We only believe we have a material being. Sri Ramakrishna says, your senses are very, very useful if you use them properly. But if you don't use them properly, you become a slave of the senses. And then, of course, you have a real difficult life. This you have to avoid. Many other disciples also, with each disciple, he had a different method of training. And the disciples wanted to eat more. He was being very strict by saying, don't give them more food. Then the mother says, he was testing mother's uh, ability to be a motherhood. The motherhood of God is represented by Sharada Ma. So he was testing her. So don't give them any more roti. The mother said, don't worry, I will take care of their spiritual benefit if they cannot meditate. So he was insisting on meditation. Then we have another example. That is, we have Latu Maharaj, Adbhutanandaji. He was unlettered, he was uneducated. His role in life was only that of a servant till he came to the master, to Sri Ramakrishna. One day he was meditating because Sri Ramakrishna advised them to meditate. Then Sri Ramakrishna went to him and said, why are you meditating on that goddess who is kneading the dough for chapati? Go and help her. See how practical? When you have your duty, do your duty. Don't say, oh, I'm doing puja, I'm doing meditation. I cannot do my duty. So duty is important. How many things our scriptures tell us about Swadharma? This is very important for us to remember. Then we have one disciple who was very passive. He heard Sri Ramakrishna being abused, and he came back and said, oh, I couldn't buy anything in the market today because everybody was saying bad things about you. Sri Ramakrishna teaches him strength and courage by saying, if somebody says something against your guru, you must object, you must protest. But the same thing happened again. Another disciple was trying to drown a boat because somebody was criticizing the master. Sri Ramakrishna heard this story and said, no, so much passion is not good. You must control your anger. You must control your passion. You must allow others to say whatever they want. As long as you have faith, it is not It is no worry at all. So faith and devotion, these are the greatest lessons he has given us. He says that if you have faith and devotion, devotion to your work, faith that you will do it well, devotion to your seniors, your parents, your teachers, your elders, faith in them that whatever they tell you, whatever they do for you is for your own good. This will help you to have faith in God. Swami Vivekananda has told us that an atheist is a person who does not believe in himself, does not believe in God, but does not believe in himself. So first, believe in yourself, believe in others, have faith in them, and then faith in God comes finally. So faith and devotion, total dedication, compassion, self-control, proper behavior. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that I might develop an ego, therefore he went to the toilet of a cleaner and cleaned that toilet. You can see that place today, Rasik Pita. It is a Sharda Math center. So you can imagine he didn't want the ego to come up, therefore he was showing practically. But what kind of egos do we have? We feel if we do a little thing, everybody says, oh, you've done well. You say, oh, I'm the greatest. Nobody can be greater than me. But that's not correct. We are only the instruments. Beautiful songs are there in the gospel. Those of you who know Bengali can listen to the Bengali version. So melodious, so beautiful. He says that, Mother, I'm only the machine. You are the operator of that machine. You are the person who's running it. Today, in computer language, we can say that mother has given the software, but all the programming is what the mother is doing. Unless your software is properly programmed, no program will run. So that is what is being done. And this requires all the good qualities of attitude and behavior, of thought and word and action. Then what we get, the result we get is human excellence, which in Sri Ramakrishna's term is the goal of all existence. If we become excellent in all aspects, both in our worldly life and in our spiritual life, then we have achieved anything. How shall we do it? We shall do it by following the example of all those who inspire us. Today I told you about Sri Ramakrishna because that was our topic. But Sri Ramakrishna is the last person who would say, follow me. He was not like that. You follow anybody. He would say that the theater is a wonderful place of learning. Today we tell our children, don't watch TV, don't watch movies. No, watch them and take what is useful. Use it as a learning experience. So take what inspires you. Read Sri Ramakrishna's life and words if you have time and if you have inclination. These are wonderful treasures which are there. As children, we used to do treasure hunt, searching for something. You want to do real treasure hunt, read these books. Practice what you read in them. And then you will find that the steps towards human excellence are naturally coming to you and you are reaching the final goal which Sri Ramakrishna has prescribed. Thank you very much and namaste. My pranams to Sri Ramakrishna.